Welcome back to the Gore Guide, where we're on a journey to compile the definitive list of gore and splatter films. Today we'll be returning to the Wrong Turn franchise and taking a look at the brand new film, shockingly titled Wrong Turn. I don't know how they came up with that name. Geniuses. This particular Wrong Turn is a 2021 film directed by Mike P. Nelson, written by Alan McElroy, starring Charlotte Vega, Matthew Modine, and Bill Sage. Originally scheduled for release in 2020, COVID caused the release of Wrong Turn to get pushed back until January 2021, when it was released for one night only in selected American cinemas. This week saw its release on VOD, so I thought we'd take a break from the original films and take a look at the reboot. Now, as this is a new film and some of you may not have seen it yet, I will try not to get into spoiler territory, but if I get carried away, which sometimes I do, then I'll give you a heads up and you can skip that section if you want to. Alan McElroy, the writer, also wrote the original Wrong Turn film back in 2003. The film that spawned 5 sequels and introduced to the world the inbred deformed cannibal killers, Sawtooth, One Eye, and of course, Three Fingers. For those of you that are fans of the original or of the series in general, then be aware, this film is a very different beast entirely. It's a Wrong Turn film in name alone. So what's different to this film compared to the others, and how does it stand up to the rest of the franchise? Well, let's take a look and find out. Jen and her friends are hiking in the woods of the Appalachian Mountains, and despite warnings from the locals of a nearby town, they wander off the trail and get lost. A series of horrific events transpire, which culminates in a death for which the group are held responsible for by the Foundation, a self-sufficient, self-governing community which has existed in the mountains for hundreds of years, and they don't care for strangers. Grasping for hope, one of the hikers strikes a bargain with the Foundation to try to save the lives of the remaining friends. Will the Foundation accept the outsiders? And more importantly, will the outsiders accept the Foundation? And more importantly still, does anyone care? The film starts with a frame story focusing on Jen's father, Scott, played by Matthew Modine. It tells the viewer that the group of hikers had been missing for a couple of weeks, and it gives context for a timeline. I like this setup. Starting the film with a focus on a dad who's desperately searching for his daughter is a great way to quickly develop characters and make you invested in their well-being. This introduction also makes it clear from the start that this is not your normal Wrong Turn movie. There are no immediate kills like the previous films, and instead we get more of an introduction to the characters. Honestly, there isn't a ton of gore in the film, especially compared to some of the other entries in the franchise, and the kills that are there are approached in an entirely different manner. Where the other films have the mutant cannibal family that you could rely on to increase the death toll at fairly regular intervals, this film has no real antagonist, so the kills are a little bit more shocking.
Oh, shit.
The gore effects themselves are effective. Most of the injuries look realistic, and it's clear that special attention was given to the details. Speaking of details, the costumes for the Foundation look really cool. While the animal skull mask is a commonly used trope, the imagery still has an impact, especially when combined with the moss-covered clothing that they use while they're hunting. Overall, the film is well made. There are great camera angles, the lighting is beautiful, and the mountain setting is always a big plus in my book. I don't love how much they use the shaky cam, but the good camera work far outweighs the bad. There are some tense moments as well when the hikers are captured. You spend a large portion of the film not knowing entirely what's going to happen. It isn't overly predictable, and as a viewer, it's easy to get invested in the well-being of the characters. Wrong Turn also takes on the difficult subject of abandonment issues.
You left me.
I know. I'm sorry, okay? I was freaking out. I didn't know what I was
You
doing. I know!
abandoned me!
This is a recurring theme that several characters struggle with, and while it could have been dealt with a lot better, it's refreshing to see it being addressed. Finally, I really like the song at the end. It's a cover of the Woody Guthrie classic, This Land Is Your Land, by Matthew Modine's daughter, Ruby Modine.
This land is your land, and this land is my land.
A good soundtrack really adds to the atmosphere of the film, and the concluding score really packs a punch. The main thing that's going to bother most people about this film is the title. There's no connection to the original franchise apart from the writer, and the title just causes confusion. Relying on the hype built over the past almost 2 decades to draw in unsuspecting viewers, only to reward their brand loyalty with disappointment. But let's start from the beginning. This film has such a slow start. Like I previously mentioned, it doesn't start with any kills, and instead focuses on character development, which would be fine, but there really isn't any. We get a rough idea of who they are, but mainly it's just a bit boring in the beginning, and for a while in the middle, and a bit at the end. Almost all of the kills happen off screen. The aftermath only approach can be really effective when used sparingly, or to reveal a particularly shocking death, but Wrong Turn uses it far too often. It comes across as a lazy cop-out, especially for a franchise which has built its reputation on getting up close and personal with kills. The film has several mixed messages, and it feels like McElroy was so focused on ensuring that the viewer was uncertain about who the real monster was that he forgot himself. For one thing, the members of the Foundation have a version of justice that's both barbaric and idiotic. They're presented as victims because a member was killed by one of the hikers, but there's no mention of the fact that 2 of the hikers were killed by traps and all of their phones were stolen during the night. If someone from the Foundation wasn't responsible for these actions, then who was? Maybe it was Three Fingers. Maybe there is a tie-in with the franchise after all. The main character is also subject to being written with conflicting messages. On the one hand, there is the obvious focus on her as a strong and independent woman. She shows that she's willing to sacrifice her own well-being for the sake of her friends. However, in her self-preservation, the only thing that she feels like she has to offer the Foundation is her body. And this is a shitty message to send out. For such a well-developed character, this was definitely not the only option. One thing the franchise is fairly well known for is having strong female characters. And this film tries, but the image is shattered frequently when they just give up when they think they've been abandoned by their male counterpart, whether that's a partner or a father. The abandonment issues could have been used to much better effect. Even though Jen has an impressive, if somewhat unbelievable character arc, a male ultimately saves the day, and this totally undermines the message that they seemed to initially be going for. Prior to this film, one of my most frequent complaints about the franchise was that no one seems to know about the cannibal killers. This film does address that. The local townsfolk give hints to the hikers and explicitly give a backstory for the Foundation later in the film.
Anyone who goes up there, they don't come back.
So they know about the Foundation, but apparently they just don't care enough to do anything about them. I prefer the unrealistic ignorance of the original franchise over the fully developed acceptance of the Foundation. Overall, this film is just packed with stupid decisions and occurrences, and there are so many plot holes that the filmmakers should be embarrassed.
We've been sleeping in the graveyard. Hey, guys!
Actually, one more connection between this film and the original films is the awful accents, and the accents in this film are all over the place. Most of the townsfolk sound like somebody described a generic southern accent to them and they tried to imitate it without actually having heard one themselves.
Piece of advice. Keep to the marked trail. The land here can be unforgiving.
And the members of the Foundation, how do I describe them? Some of them sound like middle-aged suburban dads, and some of them sound like they're dialect coaches specialized in early Neanderthal.
Is she yours?
In a manner. It takes a village to raise a child, isn't that what they say?
How much?
$10.
But accents aside, we're also supposed to believe that the members of the Foundation have developed an entirely new language over the course of just a couple of hundred years. Oh, and one other question. Is there a spa at the Foundation? Because everyone's hair and skin looks amazing. There are a few minor spoilers coming up, so if you don't want to hear them, you can use the time guidelines in the description below to skip ahead. So after nearly 2 months of being captured by the Foundation, the surviving hikers eventually get rescued, and turns out that they were never more than 5 minutes away from a road. As some of the townsfolk drive up in their car almost to the gate, and why did the hikers stay for nearly 2 months when they could just walk out of the gate?
This gate's never locked like this.
And finally, the ending. My God, the ending sucks. I won't spoil it for you, but it actually made me angry because it was so ridiculous and unbelievable. Also, there's a really stupid choice of including a very thinly veiled anti-abortion message. Nothing solidifies a shitty movie like some shitty political commentary at the end. Just put aside your insecurities and let your lead character be a powerful and rational woman. It's okay. The lack of on-screen kills is very frustrating, and while there are some very effective deaths, most of them are just shown after the fact. Anyone can show you a pile of goo and tell you that it used to be someone's head. So Wrong Turn gets 2 out of 5 for amount of blood, and 3 out of 5 for quality of effects. It feels like this might have been McElroy's original plan for the 2003 film, but someone did him the favor of making it into a slasher. Had the original Wrong Turn been along the line of this film, then it would definitely not have spawned a franchise and would probably have just vanished into oblivion, possibly like this film will. It comes across as an attempt to reclaim the franchise from the generic slasher movies that it's become well known for, and replace it with something more highbrow and modern with some very forced social commentary. Maybe he felt like he had the right to do that because he wrote the original film, but the franchise went on to make 5 more films without him, and the one that he wrote wasn't even the best one. So, no, the previous films weren't exactly original, but the trio of killers were at least entertaining, and Wrong Turn 2021 doesn't even attempt to offer an light-hearted, entertaining moment, let alone an entertaining character. The ridiculousness of the situations and the poor writing is made all the more ridiculous by the fact that it takes itself so seriously. Giving it a different title would have set it up to be less of a disappointment, but it still wouldn't have filled in the numerous massive plot holes. There are a lot of mixed messages, and while I applaud their attempt at taking on separation issues and fear of abandonment, they miss the mark totally and come across almost offensive. Wrong Turn feels like a bad mixture between Southern Comfort, which is a fantastic film, The Apostle, which is fantastic as well, and Midsommar, which isn't. So Wrong Turn gets 2 out of 5 stars. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen Wrong Turn, The Foundation, as it's sometimes called, if you have any thoughts on it, or if you have any requests for future videos. Join me next time when we'll be taking a look at Mind Warp, a sci-fi horror from 1990 starring Bruce Campbell and Angus Scrimm. There's a link to the trailer in the description below, along with a link to my list of films on Letterboxd. Don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and click on the bell to keep up to date with new content. Thanks for watching, and until next video, have a bloody good time.